Okay, good morning. This is attempt number 2 at trying to make a video because my first attempt was like 15 seconds, and right at the beginning I made a giant yawn. And I'm just like, yeah, I'll start over. Alright, so here's the deal. Yesterday was a day that was just a nightmare. I want to use different words, but nightmare's a polite way of saying those words. But it was horrible. I ended up having to make 2 runs for my delivery. I go into my pizza job, and the district manager comes in, which is fine. Really quick at doing stuff, doesn't explain anything to me of what he wants different than what I'm already doing. Does a lot of things different, flies through everything, and I'm just sitting here like, I am super slow to that, which is fine. But he said a lot of things that were very condescending toward everybody, and I took it personally. And I'm going to tell you, I did a video a while back on anger, and yesterday I had a lot of seething anger. But to be honest with you, I actually was able, for one of the few times in my life, actually keep it in check, keep quiet, and just kind of just try to, I tried my hardest to try to pay attention to what's going on and ignore all the sidetrack baloney that came with it. The guy said a lot of condescending things. I don't think it was intended to be mean, but it was definitely hurtful because my boss has constantly complimented me on stuff I do, and he depends on me when I go in. And I know he really, really appreciates me being there, and I know he appreciates me being there, so I kind of sucked it up. But he came in, my boss came in, and he knew I was already having a rough day in the first place. So there's a couple times where I was close to just saying I'm done and walk out. But again, sometimes just being patient is the best thing you can do. Keep your mouth shut, head down, try to observe, and try to learn. And just be patient. It's what I did. Now, when the day was over and I was on my way home, of course, I also know part of my problem was the fact I put in about like a 16-hour day yesterday, which those really stink. And Saturday's going to be another one of those days. But, so I also know I was also tired. But I try to take advantage of the positives of what happened yesterday. In hindsight, I had a really strong money day. I made good money. Between everything I did, I don't have a guarantee on how much I'm making, but I'm pretty sure on my extra thing I had to do, which took me 2 hours. But if I get even close to the pay I'm thinking I'm going to get, yeah, I'm going to have a really good money day. Plus doing the pizza place, yeah. So that's a blessing. I also picked up quite a few tips that's going to help me out at the pizza job. So, there was a lot of positives. Again, there was a lot of things said, a lot of things that was pointed at, but I also tried to understand where he's coming from. I also tried to soak in the knowledge that he has. The guy's been there for 20, the guy's done the job for 20 years. And, part of the problem I have is that you have, there's issues. But I appreciate my boss because I know how much he appreciates me. And he works with me. It's hard to find a boss that can work with the kind of schedule that has to be flexible from time to time. My delivery job is my main job. And I've got a boss that understands that and works with me very, very well. And I can't say how much I appreciate it, Steve. I know you watch these, so thank you very much. I did give... But here's the thing. When you deal with anger, the first thing is to be slow to speak, quick to listen. You should be that way anyway. Slow to speak, quick to listen. The next thing is the fact that instead of being hurt, butthurt, and vengeful and hateful, I tried to be absorbing of everything that was positive. Like I said, the guy loaded up the counter and really, really fast, and about 3 times as fast as what I go. There's some things I make that I'm pretty quick with, but he was just zooming through everything, and there's some things that I don't like as much as what he did. I mean, we had a certain roll that we make, and he made it smaller than what we make. Talking to my boss, I think we're in agreement. We like the bigger one, because for your money value, you want a bigger roll. But I mean, I still absorbed it. He did it differently. He did a lot of things different than how I do it. I absorbed it. I didn't let his words affect me enough to let me observe. He changed the table, how we had to set up, so it's easier access to more of the main ingredients that we need versus the less ingredients. I mean, he did a lot of things that I think was really good, and he had a lot of changes to the place I think is good. Now, are we going to implement everything he says? I don't know. There's some things that he made that's easier for him to make that I know I'm going to struggle with. And if I go with the old ways, it's easier for me. And it's not like it's, and he even said, it's not like it's one of those things that's going to be a big, big, giant deal. I see the difference. I'm going to try to do it that way because I think it'll work out better. But I try not to take offense at some of the stuff he did, and I just let it go in one ear out the other, because I know it was not pointed at anybody in particular. But the one thing that I think he has a hard time understanding is the fact, and I understand this too, is the fact that he's old school. He comes from a place where he gets employees in there and they stay. The place we work at, the turnover ratio in the last 6 months, pretty much my boss has gone through 2 different crews since I've been there in the last 6 months. So, yeah, the turnover ratio in Ohio is a lot different, and especially in the town I live in, is a lot different than what it would be in a bigger city where most of his stores is from, in Indiana. But, you know, God says, even God says, to be quick to listen and be slow to talk. Be slow to anger and be quick to observe. A paraphrase. Yeah, there's my yawn, because yesterday was 16-hour day. It was extremely long. I'm extremely tired. Plus, I had to do this job early morning, so I only had about 4 hours of sleep on top of that, which is fine. I can function. But my plans for the day is, I know that where I want to be each week money-wise is within a certain place or more. And I know with me doing what I did yesterday with the extra run and with the pizza job going all day versus a part day, I know that's going to be covered. It's exhausting. It's frustrating. And especially yesterday. Excuse me. But most days aren't going to be that way. And I'm trying to keep that in perspective. I know there's a lot of things I was frustrated with. And pretty much I let my boss know it after the day was over. But that's the thing. He knows that I have good intentions. He knows that I'm not calling him up to go off on him. But he likes the feedback because I am considered one of his managers. And so, yeah, Steve, again, I really appreciate that. You're a kind of boss that every boss should be like, honestly. You listen, you understand, I appreciate that. And God, I can tell by the comments how much you're appreciated at the pizza shop. But that pizza shop isn't all. Personally, it's not the greatest selling. It's not the greatest when it comes to sales, and I think part of that's the fact the mall's a dying thing. But realistically, the pizza place has good food. And in general, the customer service right now, with the people we have, is really good. And the stuff that is frustrating is a lot less than what it normally is in a restaurant. So that's pretty much everything you look for in a job. And if it paid a little more, which I understand why it doesn't, so I've made it work. But, and I know how much I'm appreciated for what I do. I mean, food restaurant businesses, when you close, it takes about an hour or two to get closed. We took an hour, and that's because we had about half an hour working on the drawer. But to deal with anger, you just need to be slow to speak and quick to listen. Be quick to learn. In this case, I was able to learn. But just be patient. Because patience is a virtue I've been working on. And yeah, am I perfect? No. Do I make mistakes? Absolutely. But yesterday was one of those days where being quiet and being patient for most of the day paid off for me. Because I learned a lot. I can't guarantee I'll be able to be as quick as he is. Because there's so much stuff I can't do, but it gives me something to shoot for and a goal, and I think that's awesome. And I think that's the big thing is when you're able to absorb information, when you're able to absorb stuff, and this is one of those things where I was able to sit back and listen and learn. And there's a lot of times I wanted to say something I didn't. And sometimes you're in a situation where it's not about learning, it's just about just biting your tongue and turning the other cheek, which is kind of another reason why I say what I do, because God says, in the Bible it constantly says, it does say an eye for an eye. But if you actually look at the actual text, it says it's not an eye for an eye, but to turn the other cheek so they can smite the other cheek also. That is exactly what the Bible says. One of the really misquoted texts in the Bible that people constantly use. It's an eye for an eye. No, the Bible says it's not an eye for an eye. Kill the person with kindness. That's always been a struggle with me when I'm frustrated. But I've really, in a lot of ways, I've been able to channel my frustration and my anger into productivity. When I worked in a factory, when I would get upset with something, I worked harder. When at the pizza job, when I'm frustrated and I'm staying quiet, I try to find more stuff to keep me busy, to keep my mind off what I'm frustrated on. And again, having a boss that I can talk to when I am frustrated, it helps out a lot. I really appreciate him. And I've had some other bosses like that too. I've had some really good bosses. I've also had some really bad bosses. But when you get those good bosses, you want to just explode and just do a great job. The bosses I work for now, and in all my jobs, the pizza job, Steve, the boss that I had, my delivery job, he just left, and we have a new one that's learning the ropes. But he seems like he's going to have the personality that once he gets it down, I think he'll be fine. But again, I don't know him. But the boss that I had was spectacular. I really I liked both of my bosses. And the last boss for my last two jobs is myself. If I can't be happy with myself as my own boss, then I don't deserve to be my own boss. Plus, I'm a manager at another place, and a lot of what I've picked up that I've struggled with is now becoming a strength of mine. I am very slow to speak. But when I speak, I know people listen. And when they don't listen, I talk to my boss and let him deal with it. Because that's one thing I know he appreciates is when you have somebody in charge, that person's in charge. I don't go around saying I'm the boss. I don't go around saying I am the power. I don't need to. When you have a well-oiled machine that works really well, you don't need to be, I'm the boss. You just need to let people do their thing and just do your thing. And then if you need to step in and make an adjustment with somebody, then you can. And I've struggled. My first job was at McDonald's as a boss, and I struggled with it. And I struggled, and I've had time to think about that and be like, here's what I did wrong. Here's things I needed to fix. I was frustrated because I was trying to do a whole bunch of stuff. And so I've been able to pick up a lot of stuff where I was frustrated and upset. And now I can look back and say, even though it was a frustration and I hated it, it really helped me out. I have been a boss in several positions and several places now. I'm my own boss, so I tell myself what to do. I tell myself when to go out and when to come in. But I have a gig that just works out really well for me, and I appreciate it. God has blessed me in a lot of ways, money-wise and stuff like that. And I've struggled for years. And for the last couple of years, it's been a blessing. So guys, just be patient. Just be patient. It will work itself out. Keep in prayer. Let God, let go and let God. It's a saying that is frustrating because you sit there and you're like, how do you let go and let God do it? And you've seen some of my videos where I am frustrated and where you hear me talk about it. And that's one way I let my frustrations out is by discussing it. And you guys listen, and I thank you. You guys are awesome. If it's 50 people listening, thank you for listening. If it's only like 3 or my parents, thank you for listening. I appreciate it more than you know. And I know you guys watched the video, so thank you, Mom and Dad. I love you. You guys be blessed and have a great day.